Hey, Sox fans. Welcome to Good Guys Talk Back, a local fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast, hosted by Nick Murawski and Pat Hester.
Hey, now, welcome back, folks. It is Good Guys Talk Back, and I am Nick Murawski, and this is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. Folks, welcome to episode 295, and welcome to the start of season 7. We'll talk about it a little bit at the beginning of this episode. I still am kind of shaking my head that we are kicking off season 7. Boy, have we come a long way, and we're pretty much right back where we started as we talk about the big Garrett Crochet move and what's coming back, the direction of the White Sox, and all of that fun stuff. Happy holidays to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us live on the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. And if you're consuming the podcast, the audio, of course, thank you. And that is available everywhere. With me, as always, my best friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Nick, you said a lot of things there, but you buried the lead. It's a big day today for one Nick Murawski, 44 years young. You don't look a day over 40. Happy birthday, buddy. I hope you enjoyed your day. Lots of desserts were had, I'm sure.
Yes.
And you just had the best day you could possibly have at 44.
It was a great day. It's great when your birthday falls on a weekend. It's you get to just kind of sleep in a little bit. It was a wonderful day, wonderful weekend. I love having my birthday during the Christmas season. Bummer with the rain here in the Chicagoland area. I would have loved a little bit of snow, but it's all good, man. Really appreciate your birthday wishes and so many others jumping in throughout the day. My wife, who's absolutely amazing and who supports all my crazy passions and problems, and you could call the White Sox kind of both of that, but I'm a diehard Sox fan, of course. That's like my 1, 2, 3. But we've talked about it on the podcast. I'm also a Batman fan.
You are.
Goes back a long time. And my wife went to the greatest store of all time, which is Grandstand on 35th and Wallace. And I've got this gift here that I need to show off because you know my love for bobbleheads.
Okay.
And I got to show this off if the camera can see it.
Oh, wow.
This is a Batman White Sox bobblehead, folks. If you're not on the Good Guys Talk Back live stream, maybe you could check this out. This is one of a kind right here. I mean,
is that like a custom made? Did she have that done, or I sell that?
I don't. Excuse me. Can you make me a Batman bobblehead holding a bat? And it's like on top of a White Sox stadium. I'll pay whatever you would like, except I have my limits.
Now that's a gift right there.
That was a gift.
Fantastic gift.
Yeah, that was, and Grandstand, of course. Grandstand has it all. So
and she picked up your mail there because you went there so often. At one point, your mail was delivered at Grandstand, so that's good. You got to kill two birds with one stone there.
Yeah. She's outstanding, and that store is, man, we've talked about it and you know it, but if you haven't, I don't even know what kind of custom jersey you'd get. You'd have to get a former player. There's no way you're gonna get a current player, I don't think.
Well, you get a Murawski 44. Why not?
You could. Jake Peavy would be a little salty with that.
You think so?
His number.
He is a salty character.
He is a salty character.
You think word gets to him? They said there's people getting a 44 jersey, but not with your name on it.
Yeah. It's just
upset about it.
Record stops. He jumps into his pickup truck and just hightails it to the south side of Chicago. Probably he's that kind of guy. But yeah, no, thank you so much for all the birthday wishes. Great day, and man, what a time to be a White Sox fan. How about it? There's been so many times around this year I'm hoping, like, boy, we land a big name free agent, something to get excited about, not only around my birthday but the holidays, so we all can have something extra underneath the tree, so to speak. And I mean, we got to get to this. A lot of people have already, of course, unpacked it. This Garrett Crochet trade. We knew it was coming. It was told. We were told about it. Maybe they were going to do a Dylan Cease thing, and they were going to wait till spring training. But it just felt like there was so much smoke there. Whether it was the Cubs, this three-way deal with Seattle, Boston kept being mentioned, and this past week, the deal got done while the winter meetings were happening. You and I didn't talk too much about it when it initially happened. So I just want to know your initial thoughts, Pat, when the deal went down.
Well, it's not a shock. I was, listen, I'll never sit on this podcast and pretend like I'm some sort of expert when it comes to prospects and who other teams have in their system and what I'd like to get back in return. So I've got to rely on the experts out there to kind of give me an idea of, okay, was this a good deal, bad deal type of situation? Quite honestly, Nick, you look at it on paper and you hear what people are saying, and you look at where guys rank not only in MLB pipeline in terms of there's a couple guys in the top 100. There's guys that were in their top 20 or so in the Red Sox system that you got. So you look at the all of it, together, and you think, oh, it's a pretty good deal for one guy. You got a lot of talent that you brought back. I think it's interesting that you're bringing in another catcher, and you've got, you got some catching depth, a position now that you may look to, flip something and move, because, there's going to be teams also like you have been in the past looking for catching help. I like the fact that you have an infielder and you have a second baseman that you maybe have identified for the future. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and get giddy and go, okay, wow, now let's talk about 3 or 4 years now. And then when are they going to, like we have in the past, these guys are all going to be plateauing at the same time. It's going to be a juggernaut situation. Look out. So I'm reserving myself of those types of things, but I also look at it, Nick, and I go, at some point, you want to feel like this rebuild is going to get started. We've bottomed out. It's been awful, but there's not really been that moment where you go, it's now started. The rebuild is now started. I feel like it is now started officially in terms of getting some real talent back, if that makes any sense. But I wasn't doing back handsprings because I don't know these guys. I don't know if any of them are going to pan out. And I don't know, even if they are talented, Nick, I don't know if they'll be developed properly. So I'm not shocked. I was happy to see it was done. And I was also glad to see it was done now and not during the season, because I just worry about that, the injury situation and losing the value there. So those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah. Well said. I mean, I think we agreed, and I'll get to some specifics here. Here are the details, and I'll butcher some names, and we'll find out that maybe names that I didn't butcher were actually we were all butchering them. This is how it is with some of these players. It's like, oh, by the way, you were pronouncing that name Montgomery. It's Montgomery. So you're a big
yes,
idiot.
you always I've always mispronounced Montgomery.
Well,
that's always the one I stumble
again
over.
Like when you get a bag of prospects back, it's like I don't even know if pronouncing the name is the biggest deal here. So Red Sox sending a group of 4 fronted by catcher Kyle Teal, who was rated number 25 on MLB Pipeline's top 100 prospects list, and number 4 in Boston's system at the time of the agreed upon trade. In addition to Teal, Sox receive outfielder Braden Montgomery, the number 54 overall prospect in all of baseball, infielder Chase Meadroth, Boston's number 11 prospect, and right-hander, I love this one, Wickelman Gonzalez, Boston's number 14th prospect. Teal, which is the number 14th overall in 2023, and Montgomery, number 12 overall, 2024, represent Red Sox last 2 first-round draft picks. So, yeah, on paper, sure. This is something that I think the Sox, position-wise, need. Again, the catcher, yeah, it's a little fishy. Like, where's the development at? Where's Caro actually at? And how soon do we see these guys? And it's such a, subjective thing, and depending on who you talk to. And it was almost 8 years to the exact date of when Sale was dealt to Boston for a bunch of prospects. And I feel like if you talk, Pat, I don't know if you get this sense, but if you talk to maybe some younger White Sox fans, and again, I could just be assuming, younger Sox fans like in their early 20s, and 8 years ago, they didn't quite understand what was going on when we sent Adam Eaton to the Nationals and Chris Sale to Boston. And I mean, when I was 12, 13, 14, I was following, but I didn't quite grasp, the ins and outs of the game. And I think I'm still trying to figure it out in a way. But so this is what our version of the Sale situation is. This is their time. And I feel like there's some younger Sox fans that are like, here we go. Look at this farm system, and look at what we have in the pipe with Montgomery and Schultz and Smith, and and we're still maybe going to flip Luis Robert Jr., which is what we were saying about Quintana. Remember when we had that offseason in 2016, and then the summer of 2017, here comes Eloy Jimenez. And so I'm sorry if I can't get very excited about this, because it's not the who, it's the why. So it's not the players that are coming back or the players that are even leaving this time around for me as a Sox fan. It's the why. Why are we doing this? Is this how the Sox are going to continue to operate under Jerry? Is this because we don't want to pay for pitching and we don't know how to develop and we're not going to spend in the free agent world? So this is why we have to keep doing this. When's it going to stop? Is it ever going to stop?
Yeah.
And just because Chris Getz is doing this, and there's new faces around Chris Getz, and there's an offensive coordinator now in the coaching staff, and we've got more analytical guys. Is it going to be all of a sudden different? Should I have this open mind? Maybe, but look, you got to feel however you got to feel, Pat, and whatever it is you're holding on to as a Sox fan, and damn, is it difficult right now. Whether it's renderings of a South Loop Stadium, or, is it these prospects coming back and the hope for whatever it is, I get it. You got to do what you got to do, because it's going to be an ugly, ugly year in 2025. I am just upset with this continuation, this hamster wheel of hell.
That'd be a good book title. The Hamster Wheel of Hell by Nick Murawski.
Yeah.
I get it. And again, I understand, and I'm okay too with people that want to get excited and kind of start to drool over the
go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Because, and I was talking about it with my dad today, and because, we were kind of going back and forth about it, and he's, he's very pessimistic, and rightfully so. But because he's, it's their prospects. How do you know all these? And I said, I get it, Dad. But what else do we have right now? There's no other. If you're going to be a fan of this team, you might as well try and find something to glean to. And right now it's going to be the young talent in the system. Again, I have no idea if they're going to develop them. I think you had mentioned Luis Robert Jr. He has he's got options in 2026 and 2027, but he's ultimately signed on to be with this team till 2027 potentially. Do you look at that, depending on what he does this year? If you don't end up moving him this off season, could you live in a world where you go, this could be a veteran type presence guy when this young talent potentially could be hitting the scene? And really, his options really not going to be that big to pick up probably in 2026, 27. Do we ultimately try and keep a guy like him around to see if he could live up to his potential? Or do you think he's ultimately gone?
I don't think he's gone this offseason. I think the Sox, are overvaluing him, and they want a king's ransom, and I don't think they're going to get that. So I think you hold on to him, hope he mashes, hope he stays healthy, hope he puts up some big offensive numbers, and then you move him at the trade deadline. If you're going to do this, if you're going to do this, and they already have, okay, if you're going to go in this direction, in my mind, then you might as well just don't keep anybody. Yeah. Go get everything you need from Luis Robert Jr. if he can give you that, which I don't think he can do that with what the White Sox want. This was from MLB Trade Rumors. Part of Robert's trade value is tied into his contract, like you had mentioned, Pat, which is a bargain if the outfielder is as healthy and productive as he was in his all-star season in 2023. Robert is set to earn $15 million in 2025, and the Sox have a pair of $20 million per year club options with $2 million buyouts for both 2026 and 2027. Getz said this past week of the winter meetings, he's gotten a lot of interest. Getz is asking for a lot in the return of Robert, and the general manager defended his stance by saying the White Sox are looking for a trade package to compensate the talent that he brings to the table, since Robert's tools haven't changed. Obviously, the injury last year was disruptive to Robert's production, but the reason there's so much interest is because maybe a team feels like they can capture something that perhaps didn't show up last year, Getz said. That seems like a lot of hope and wishful thinking. I mean, we all know what he could do, but is it sustainable? Is this something that a team's going to gamble on with their farm system and risk if they're not going to get the longevity? I don't want a half a season of that magic or even a whole season. I want several seasons. That's what a team, and I don't know if there is enough out there, enough confidence, Pat, for the Sox to get that type of return.
I don't think you're getting the return that Chris Getz wants, and maybe he's got the price set so high because he ultimately doesn't want to really move off of him right now. I mean, listen, you had mentioned the contract and it is team friendly, but it is going up. It has been, lower, and it's been gaining steam over the last couple of years. That's how the contract was devised. So he's going to be making the most he's ever made per year this coming year at $15 million. Is ultimately ownership looking at that and saying it's worth it for what he's produced? I don't know. I guess part of me, maybe wrongfully, wants to see, what he could do with these quote unquote tools that we've been told he has, and have a healthy season. And I would like to live in a world where he's a guy that we could find a way to keep and win with. But I only don't know like what kind of character he has either. I think that's been that was a thing that was seemed to be a part of a bad clubhouse in the past couple of years is the character of the guys in the room wasn't all that great. I don't know if Robert's one of those guys or not. Is he a guy that you can count on? Is he a guy that's going to have passion for the game and put it all out there? I don't know. Is he a leader? Doesn't seem like it. I don't know. So I guess in the back of my mind, ultimately, I'd love to see the talent realized in this uniform, because they've probably got bobbleheads set up for him from several years. They got to do something with them. So
yeah,
I don't know.
He's marketable.
Yeah, he is marketable.
That he's the only guy that's marketable, and that's on the White Sox terms.
Yeah,
I think other organizations are like, yeah, okay, Gold Glove. Yeah, he's got some raw power. He's breathtaking in the outfield when he wants to be and when he's healthy, and he's absolutely scary at the plate. He can run, he could change the game in so many different ways, but he's not out there enough. But you got to cling to something when you're an organization trying to put butts in the seats, and it ain't going to be the team. So do you have any superstars that maybe you could somehow highlight? I think superstar is such a loose term with Robert. I mean, boy, some flashes here and there. And I think it's the organization and all of us trying to will it to happen. You know, it's quite the stretch. But I don't know, Pat. I hear what you're saying, just like I felt with Jimenez and even Mancada. Like I just in Kopech. I think we were saying this in spring training last year. I don't know what's going to happen with these guys, if they're going to be good or not, or ever live up. I just want to see what they could do if they stayed on the field.
Yeah.
What that full potential could be if they were healthy.
And we never saw it.
We never saw it. And
which is really a shame of things when you think about it. It's like, wow, we can sit here and wring our hands and gnash our teeth over the managers we've had over the past couple of years. And we can talk about Jerry till we're blue in the face. But boy, it's really seems like a crime against nature that the core of the team never really played together for an extended period of time.
I mean, I hate to reflect on this type of stuff because you got to move forward. But I think sometimes you have to sit with the past. I think sometimes you have to just sit with what we've gone through, you know, because there's this mentality of, okay, like move, next rebuild, here we go, next man up. Like, okay, who's in the system? How's our farm system looking? Who are the next big arms? I don't know. Sometimes you got to just, whoa, like we've been through a lot as a fan base. Voluntarily, no one's forcing us.
Yeah.
You know, but you and I have talked and reflected how we're not in any position to be abandoning this, because this is, you know, this is sewn into us, the White Sox fandom, from multiple generations, and the memories and the people. And this is a language. This is a way of life. Yes, it is voluntary, but we've adopted it. We've owned it. And now we've passed it on to our own children in hopes that will continue. But we've been through some things, especially the last 7 years. And then we're starting year 7 with this podcast. Wow. You know, you think back and have we ever had a exciting off season where we were, maybe it was the first year, you know, because this podcast was essentially born in the whole Harper Machado situation.
Yeah.
And we're maybe we'll get Machado, maybe we'll get Harper. We might be on both. Oh my goodness, what a time to be alive. That was like the only off season I could think of in a long, long time. Maybe in my lifetime, where you felt like we were there writing checks. And pundits were saying the most likely landing spot could be with the White Sox for these superstars. I haven't felt that ever. I think that felt like the only off season. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're not wrong on that. And it was one of those things where you're refreshing Twitter and as often as you can, and looking at things. And we did silly things like, what color batting gloves did somebody use in a batting practice to kind of dictate where he may go or not go. So it was a crazy, weird time, Nick. I don't think that we'll ever experience anything like that again, but I could be wrong. I probably am wrong, actually, because as we've said many, many times, eventually, you know, things will change with this ownership group, and maybe they'll have a different way of going about business. And maybe we'll go out and sign someone for a 15-year, 715 or 750, whatever it is, $1 million contract, which is absurd to think about. But maybe that'll be us someday.
You know, again, hope. That's the key word. You know, Greg put up in the chat when Melky Cabrera and David Robertson were signed. That was a pretty exciting off season. Was that also the Samardzija?
It could have been. I mean, we've had. I remember being the talk of the winter meetings with some signings, but they were. I don't know, like maybe just better than middle shelf acquisitions, right? So they're like, okay, not the best of the best, but you combine all three of these signings
But
that
they
we
felt
have.
aggressive. You felt like you
Yeah,
were
they
going
felt
out and
aggressive,
answering some
and you put it all
needs.
together, and it's like, okay, this kind of, you can talk me into a way where this team is going to have a good year with guys like Milky, Cabrera, and Robertson, all that stuff. But ultimately, it just didn't pan out. You didn't have enough support, in terms of the brick and mortar guys, the everyday players, to really sustain it. And when you don't have top level superstar or superstars in your lineup, it's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for a while. I don't want to be doom and gloom on the opportunity to have hope with prospects. I completely get why it was done. Sox aren't going to re-sign Garrett Crochet, which is a whole nother story that we've vented about. They weren't going to invest in that. Give that money. It didn't sound like there were any conversations at all about contract extensions. And if that's the case, then of course, don't let them go into season. If this is what Getz was looking for and the people around Getz, and this is the most attractive thing out there, and they didn't think that they were going to get anything more if you held out a little bit longer in the off season, then, I get it. You got to make a move and you got to move on. And it's just the reality of being the White Sox and being a fan of the Sox. I understand that. But for me to completely flip around and reinvest all the hope that I had in 2016, 2017, and pretend that never happened, and just all of a sudden say, well, we got new faces around. It can't be like that. I mean, this has got to work this time. I can't do that personally. This is a real, you got to show me. I'll wait. I will wait till they get, if ever, to the bigs, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, and it wasn't even the big guys like Kopech and Moncada and Aloy. It was guys like Madrigal or Zach Collins or Zach Birdie or Fulmer, on and on. Those level guys. That was a joke. Oh, well, we got new, scouting folks in, but who was in charge of the development? Isn't he the GM now?
Oh, I'm sure it'll be better now, but yeah, and it's going to be interesting the way in which the GM implements the track and the timeline for these guys, and because under Rick, I remember it was always, and I've mentioned it before, he would always say, well, it's X amount of at bat, like 500 at bats, and and give them a chance to succeed, fail, see how they come back from the failure, and then before we bring them up. It seemed like in last year anyway, or maybe the last couple of years, it just seems like guys have come up, they failed when they got up there, and then they get sent back down, and they're never heard from again. And it seemed like a really weird way to go about trying to develop guys. I feel like, in a year or years where you're failing in terms of wins and losses, my thought would be, if a guy's up here, let him continue to be up here and try and find his way up here. But maybe that's wrong. I don't know. It just feels like there was too much bounce back and forth a little bit.
There was under the stuff that Grifol would say, and I mean, he was just talking. I mean, he was a joke. There's a reason why he didn't last, and he lasted far longer than he should have lasted. But the way he operated and made a lineup and treated young guys, and the way the organization operated in general, I'll be really interested if I can get access to this 2025 team. I'm still trying to figure out how to go about doing that, but I'll be interested to see, what the plan is, and if it feels different than the last time around. It's not going to mean like my excitement or hope is necessarily going to change. It's just going to be a series of events.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're doing it this way. Or it's the same. I see what you're doing here. You're still dragging guys around and jacking around with them up and down, with their playing time. And, I'm curious about a plan with positions. Where are they focusing on guys? I've heard Colson Montgomery, you can play a bunch of different positions. It was in the chat about Caro, he could potentially play first. I've heard that. Even Teal. Is he going to be a catcher? Is he actually going to be a catcher moving forward? Because it sounds like he could play a few positions as well. Are they just gathering a bunch of hybrid players like they did in the past? Guys that can play multiple.
Did they gather hybrid players, Nick, or did they gather all DH first basemen?
That was the hybrid. It was DH.
Oh, that was the hybrid. It's two spots.
Yeah.
One of the spots doesn't play an actual position.
Yeah. Those are the things you have to, I guess, look at moving forward. Those are because there's going to be no other real major offseason moves.
Yeah.
So, what does Getz say? What does Venables say? And then, of course, you look at spring training of how guys are getting playing time, or what does a roster start looking like, a depth, and where are players getting a bulk of their position time, and how are they going to move forward? I mean, they have a collection of players now, and I don't want to say there's a log jam at certain spots, but I'm a little confused of where guys are going to see their playing time and and maybe they don't even know. They've got to wait for the dust to settle of where guys are going to be defined at, so to speak.
Yeah, and I know you're going into it very guarded, and I get it. But do you knowing that, and you saying that now, and knowing what kind of person you are, at what point where you find yourself going down the YouTube rabbit hole of highlights for these guys that are in the minors and finding yourself with a little excitement?
I'll be honest with you, Pat. I'm telling you this. I'm being very, very truthful. I don't feel that I will ever do that.
Really?
During this current rebuild. I don't think I will be. I was so into it last time. I was looking for highlights, searching for box scores, searching for any information I could get on at bats of Aloy and Robert, and outings that Kopech had. And wow, I was really invested. Not obviously as much as, folks at Future Sox, or, I mean, that's like their life, and God bless them. You got to be born into, that has to be your thing. And they're really good at it. It's just not my thing. But I found myself, even though prospects wasn't my thing, I knew that this was the future. This is all we had, because we weren't going to invest in the free agency market and play at the top of free agency, or re-sign players, or investing guys. We were hanging on to all this young talent we've amassed over the last couple of years by trading away assets. So I was so into it, as so many people were. And I think that's what crushed me. Now, I shouldn't let that completely ruin the sense of, I guess, childlike wonderment, as Hawk would say, that these young players could provide something to the big league club, and not only provide something, but could be anchors, for several years, that we might build around some of these guys. Yeah. It's very possible. I get it. It could happen, but I am not going to invest nearly as much time, not even close, to how I handled things the last time around.
That's interesting.
Will you be, or are you going to be like on minor league? Are you going to be traveling with the family to different minor league stadiums to see these guys play?
I figured I'd just, in my free time, do some live scouting. Feel they don't have enough scouts as it is, so why not like freelance scout? Some things. I've got nothing else to do. No, I think that I'll be somewhat interested in what, as they continue to bring in young talent, and especially, Nick, this was the biggest trade that they could make in terms of a piece that they had on their roster to get back young talent. I will probably be as much as I was before and trying to figure out if what they got was worth it. I'll probably even be more in tune to it if they trade Robert and get more talent back, because if they get anywhere close to what Chris Getz is looking for, that could be somewhat exciting. And you put that all together and it's like, okay, now I can start saying we've got some good talent here. Not all of it will hit, but if we hit on half of it, we'd be in good shape. If we can line up when guys are coming up to the bigs at the same time, if we've finally filled some holes that we've been, lacking in positions for many, many years, that will be very intriguing to me. And I think it's just purely for the fact of the major league team. One, you may not be able to watch them. Two, you might not want to watch them. And listen, if that's all I have right now, that's all I've got is hope. I've got nothing else to hold on to. So might as well try and start to dream for the future of what these guys could do. But I really don't know. So I will tune in and check it out and be interested to see where the Sox farm system is ranked and what other experts are saying about them. And I think maybe too, Nick, is give me the when. I get it. It's gonna be a long haul here, but can you give me when the light at the end of the tunnel is? When we might go from completely awful to somewhat palatable in terms of an organization? Can you give me something to look forward to in terms of a timeline? Is what I kind of am thinking about.
And that's a really that's a very controlled and level-headed response. I give you a lot of credit. I give everybody the credit that is pulling themselves up and going back to the hope chamber. And somebody's going to make up the shirt that is, Montgomery and Teal and Montgomery and Smith and Schultz. Like one of those classic, someone's going to make that up like we did in 2016, 2017, even maybe 2018. It's unbelievable. Like hearing you, and nothing against it, but hearing you say that, I just had flashbacks from the most previous rebuild. That's exactly what we were saying. But I was saying it in such excitement because a direction was finally picked and we seem to be going all in. And now when you speak of timeline, Pat, I think you have to couple it, because this is what we went through the previous time. It was being coupled with when money was going to be starting to be spent. It was not just when are these guys going to be bubbling up to the big leagues and really making an impact, but it was how are we going to then surround them with studs. And we were looking at the free agency, boards and when are the Sox going to start? And that's where the timelines started to be created. I mean, here as a Sox fan, let's just have some fan-centric chatter here, because that's what this podcast is all about. I mean, do you seriously think there's going to be serious money allocated, towards the game-changing type of players when the time is right, when missing pieces need to be filled in? Do you really think, that's going to be done?
Well, Nick, I would have to imagine when they are going to be in a position where they could strike that, yes, because it's going to be so far under what they've been spending over the last couple of years. They're going to be well under the budgets they've had. So though they're not going to exceed what they've ever done, but they may get back to what they had done in the past, which is like an annual average player salary around $120 million for their year, right? So I think, yes, when the time is right, they will invest, but it's not going to be like, whoa, they're doing things differently on the South Side. No, they're going to go back and do things like they've done them, but because the players that they do have are making peanuts. They can afford to fill in the gaps with some contracts. You also have to remember too, Nick, when they did the rebuild the last time and bringing up all this young talent, it was surrounding a guy that had been there already with Jose Abreu, a player that, had been established and was an all-star type player. And that's what I think, going back to the Luis Robert Jr. thing, is like, is he the Jose Abreu type that's going to be built around when this young talent potentially comes up? So to answer your question, I think the answer is yes, but not going to change. It's not going to be new and shocking. And wow, the Sox have changed. It's while their salary is so low right now, they can really afford to bring onto the books. And in that, not top level guys, don't misunderstand me here, but above average players that can help this team win.
Yeah, we'll kind of wrap up this segment, and I did have planned on getting to some things that Howard mentioned in the chat on Dick Allen and Belton Bill Melton before we talk about kind of the coaching staff and so forth that was finalized. Yeah, you could be right, Pat. Well, time will tell, just like last time. I think neither of us are running away anytime soon. And there are so many dedicated Sox fans and so many diehards that have given us so much of their time. And there's a bunch of Sox content creators that I'm sure, some might be running, so some will stick around because 2025 is going to be a tough year. But yeah, you can say that there's some light by what has happened with Garrett Crochet's situation and maybe with Luis Robert Jr. But for me, Pat, as a Sox fan, I am very, very disturbed with the process, with how this organization operates. And what an off season. It's very difficult right now on the surface to find the White Sox. We're several months away from opening day, but the clock is ticking here, and it's like, man, talk about burying a team, and what a time to bury it. It's like, I don't think there's a lot of people that are really clamoring for it, but to kind of like bury yourself even more. You don't be accessible, don't be able to be found. And that's what's happening. I don't think Sox Fest is, sure, it's coming back, but how they're rolling it out and the way they're doing it, it's really disturbing. You're bringing back almost the entirety of the coaching staff from the historically bad season. And, so there's just all this gloom. And yeah, I guess you got to look at, okay, looks like they might've hit on some things with this Red Sox deal. And maybe there's more prospects to come, and we just have to look at the maturation of some players. This is a new crop of folks that have eyes on players. Things are going to be done maybe a little differently, and it all comes down to hope. I just am waiting for the day where this isn't the way we operate over and over.
Yeah.
This is not how we constantly have to do business, that we as a fan base are not like, well, we're not, we don't rebuild, we just reload.
Yeah.
Every offseason is just like, how are we going to, keep our core and then just find the missing pieces that need to take us over the edge and beyond. So, all right. We lost a good one since the last time we talked. Bill Melton. I had heard he might have been suffering an illness, not doing that great. But boy, during some great Sox years in the early to mid 2000s, of course, the championship team and just some exciting times. I thought Belton Bill was your pre and post.
Yeah,
I mean, him and Chuck, Belton Bill Melton was a guy that like just told it like it is. Mm-hmm. He didn't mince words. He was great to listen to, super down to earth. I've told my stories of working with him part-time in the summer of 2004 at Fox Sports Net. when there were down times, he was just absolutely available, would talk to the young guys, tell stories, so approachable. And having an opportunity to, introduce my father to him when I saw him at Sox Fest a year or so later. And he just didn't just say hello to my dad. Great to see you. Go Sox. No. He spent more time than necessary talking to my dad, which my dad was a huge Melton fan back in the 70s. I mean, the home run king. It was sad to hear about that, Pat.
Yeah, gone too early in my opinion, but for someone like me, that's how I knew Bill Melton. I didn't grow up watching Bill Melton play, obviously. So, watching him on the pre and post and enjoying what he did before the pre and post, and there's nothing wrong with it. Before it became, the Ozzie Guillen show, it was a great broadcast.
Yeah.
And well done. And Bill had, you talk about the stories that he probably talked about off the air, but the great stories that he brought on the air and the analysis of the game and breaking down hitting and just being a fan of the game and the fan of the team. He was a joy to watch and to hear, guys like your dad that grew up watching him and the affinity they have for him. So it very sad, gone too soon, but Belton Bill's in a better place, and we'd raise a glass in his honor.
Yeah, and hopefully the Sox will do that at the beginning of the season. I'm sure Chuck, I know he did a podcast, but hopefully on his new pregame, whatever that network has got in store, they honor Bill and they do it at the stadium, and because he was around for a while, and he made an impact, especially during the 70s. Dick Allen finally gets into the Hall of Fame. Should have happened a long time ago. I have talked a lot about Dick Allen over the last couple of years. Of course, he was before my time, but I heard about him from my father, grandfather, uncles, relatives. What he meant to the White Sox in a short period of time. Played for the Sox in 72, 73, 74. Won the MVP in 1972. His numbers were just off the chart in 1972. Really saved the White Sox from leaving Chicago. Dick Allen deserves a statue at the ballpark. And I have talked at length about one of the best books. If you're a Sox fan, if you're a baseball fan, a history fan, Chicago history fan, political fan, whatever it is, Chili Dog MVP, you have got to read this book. I have no stake in it financially, but if you want to know more about Dick Allen and you want to know about why the White Sox are the way they are in terms of, being a kind of a second-class team in the second city and where the Sox were at in terms of possibly leaving for maybe Milwaukee or Seattle, just the city in general, and what Dick Allen brought to the South Side when he came. I mean, a record-breaking contract at the time. You got to read that book. I'm telling you, the people have said it in the chat. I had an opportunity to be on a podcast, Pod of Fame, and man, it was about Dick Allen, and we spent like 45, 50 minutes talking about Dick Allen a couple of years ago, and I wish I would have been able to see him, the stories and the numbers, and I'm just so happy for him, Pat, and his family,
Yeah, obviously great news, and from somebody had mentioned it that he did. If he did get in, he hoped to go in as a White Sox. So we'll see if he goes in as a Philly or a Chicago White Sox. That'd be great. But it's always sad to me when these things happen way past the time in which they should happen in terms of getting into the Hall of Fame and not being able to enjoy all that is with the pomp and circumstance of getting that great honor. So a little bittersweet, but it's happened, and happy for him and his family. And again, people should really look at these things a little bit differently, and in terms of who gets in, who doesn't get in. Just look at a guy. Is this guy an MVP or not? Yes or no? Well, maybe not this time around, or maybe not that time around, or maybe they should put him on the, we can't necessarily vote him in now, or, well, we couldn't vote him in because, this guy didn't get in and that guy didn't get. No, is a guy an MVP or not? Is he a Hall of Famer or not? Like, listen, let's stop joking ourselves.
It was really sad, and if you get a chance to read this, or in any other little articles or blurbs about Dick Allen, I've done some extensive research on him over the years. I mean, he played for 15 seasons: Phillies, Cardinals, Dodgers, White Sox, A's, and what he faced during his time as a black athlete in Philadelphia for the Phillies, and even before that, was just horrific. And he was an outspoken guy, rightfully so. And he rubbed a lot of journalists the wrong way from what he said and his comments. And he went through hell, as a lot of black athletes did, a lot still do. And he spoke out, and he made comments, and journalists, reporters, they didn't like that. That relationship was cantankerous. And I believe that's what has kept him out for so long.
Yeah.
Is he was dismissed because of his relationship with the media. His numbers they don't lie. His numbers are there. They're Hall of Fame numbers, especially when you look at them, in the time he played, in the era he played, and what was going on, and who were the players. But that's what's the sad thing about that whole thing.
Yeah, there really should be a different way in which, especially in baseball, how the Hall of Fame is decided upon. Were you ever a writer of baseball? You still get a vote. Like, did you ever write about the game at some point in your life? And it's so ridiculous. And people that, don't have any interactions with these people get votes. It's really mind-boggling to see how baseball has done this.
Yeah, Howard put it in the chat, and Howard's right. Dick Allen would wear the batting helmet out in the field because he was getting batteries thrown at him, and he did not feel welcomed in Philadelphia. And to your point, Pat, when he arrived in the south side of Chicago in 1972, and the reception that he got, he felt like he was at home. He finally felt at home, and that was his true team. So yeah, I would say he felt welcomed by the White Sox, and that probably, I don't know how that works. I think that would be a great guess, that his hat would be a White Sox cap in the Hall of Fame. Now the Phillies have retired his number and all that kind of stuff. But I feel it was up to him, and if he passed this along to his family, and that has a say in it, it would be a White Sox cap.
Unfortunately, though, I don't think the players have a say. I think they, because I think, didn't Wade Boggs want to go as a Tampa Bay Ray? I think that was the case. I'm serious. No, really? I'm serious.
I did not.
I thought I heard that. I thought I heard that he wanted to go in as a Ray, and as a Devil Ray at the time too. But
does MLB do it to try to spread the wealth and make sure all teams are represented, or
who knows what baseball their logic sometimes is beyond me. But I don't think it's up to the player. I think it's up to because I think the same conversation was had with Fisk. Would he go in as a White Sox or a Red Sox? He went as a Red Sox, and I think that was an MLB decision. Now,
I thought he said he did not want to go though in as a White Sox because what happened to him in '93 with Jerry.
Could be. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
but I don't think the player has makes any kind of call on that.
I'll have to get the official word. Who we need to talk to is Pete Hand. Aloha, Mr. Hand. He's a good resource, a Hall of Fame resource.
There you go.
Bend his ear.
We'll get the interns on that.
Yeah, of course. Howard asked about Pete Rose in the chat. It's a really interesting documentary that just came out. I think it was Hustle or Charlie Hustle or something of that nature that I watched a month or so ago. That dude, man, I feel like if he made some different choices, obviously in more ways than one, and just came out and just, I don't know, just aired it out and said, yeah, this is what happened. Maybe you can't take away what he did on the field, his numbers, but that's something I don't reflect too often on, just because it was kind of before my time. I mean, he was still playing and he was still around when I was a kid, but not during, obviously, the Big Red Machine. I just, based on how he handled things after it all went down in the late 80s, I just feel like probably not for a long, long time, until maybe everybody's gone that was alive during that era.
Yeah. And you think about some of the best that are probably not going to find themselves in Cooperstown. A Pete Rose, a Roger Clemens, a Barry Bonds,
Paul Konerko.
Well,
Mark Burley should be in the Hall of Fame.
It is your birthday. I will humor you today and say yes.
Mark Burley over Paul Konerko in terms of chances for the Hall of Fame. Mark Burley will get in one of these days. Mark my words.
Okay, so what podcast will it be? What season will we be in when that happens?
We'll be in season 20.
Good Lord, heaven help us all.
We'll be
20 or do this for 20
like that.
Oh, that's 13 years from now, Nick.
Yeah.
Holy merciful Lord.
That's not bad. Sox will be in their 5th rebuild. Ozzie Guillen's name will still be floated as the manager. It's going to be great.
They're gonna bring him back because Jerry felt like he wronged him, and Ozzie will be
Jerry will still be alive, of course.
Yeah, somehow he'll
be all of our lives.
Oh yes, they'll find a way to keep him alive, like Darth Vader. They'll put him in some type of robotic bodysuit, and he'll be just fine. Or like, remember Ninja Turtles? You remember Kang? Or was it Kang? Yeah, and he just lived inside the middle of the stomach of that robot.
Yeah.
Now people are like, what are you talking about, Pat? But go back and watch the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the 90s, the cartoon. You'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Before we get to quote of the week, we've got to talk about the Sox coaching staff that's been fleshed out. Sox 2 new additions are bench coach Walter McKiven and assistant hitting coach Joel McKeithen. McKiven and McKeithen are joining a staff that already features pitching coach Ethan Katz entering his 5th season, assistant pitching coach Matt Wise, 2nd season, hitting coach Marcus Tim's 2nd season, first base and outfield coach Jason Bourgeois, 2nd season, third base and infield coach Justin Jershell, 2nd season, catching coach Butera, 2nd season, and offensive coordinator Grady Sizemore in his 2nd season. How about that for Grady Sizemore? He went from just coach at the beginning of the season last year in spring training, just coach, to working his way up through the mailroom like the fatigues dude in Seinfeld with the cutoffs to manager. He made it all the way up to acting manager. And now that's still a pretty impressive role. And a baseball team is to be an offensive coordinator.
I hope he has a lot of like Statue of Liberties, flea flickers drawn up, all kinds of really cool stuff.
By the way, Pat, Peyton and Drew have both contested your pronunciation from the bodiless head living inside that behemoth in Ninja Turtles. Drew says crane and Peyton says crang.
Somebody can look it up on the Google machine. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know for sure. I mean, it was a long time ago. Yeah. So, we'll look it up.
Oh, Greg, thank you so much for being on the live stream and for providing that quote. It's hard keeping your boots clean when you're kicking in a skull. Yeah, that is such a wonderful quote from and the name escapes me. That character on Seinfeld with the fatigues and the cutoff shirt, and I don't know. What did Elaine twist it to?
Krang.
Krang. Okay. LA's got Krang. Drew's got Krang.
Yeah.
So
okay,
there you go.
That's where Jerry will be living, inside
Krang.
Yeah, right in the midsection of a robot, just his face, just his head.
I've got 2 quotes of the week, one from Han from way back when, and one from Chris Getz just recently. You can listen to these and compare and contrast. Before we say goodbye, got to thank you all so very much spending your Sundays with us. Subscribe to the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel, like the stream, all that kind of fun stuff. Pass it along to other Sox fans in your life. If you're on the audio, subscribe. Find the podcast absolutely everywhere. And if you have an opportunity, join us live or just subscribe to the YouTube channel. It means a lot as we enter our 7th season doing this. It's unbelievable. And this is our last episode before Christmas, before the holiday break. So just want to wish everybody happy holidays, Pat.
Yes, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. Hopefully everybody has a safe and happy one, and I look forward to our next episode 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we'll right before New Year. I think we'll be back, and who knows? Maybe we'll have a loose Robert Jr. To the Reds situation where we get to talk about a whole new bag of prospects and all that fun stuff. Here was Rick Hahn 8 years ago after the Adam Eaton and Chris Sale trade. Between both the Sale and the Eaton deals, it was a very fine start, in our opinion, to this process. Those 2 deals alone significantly move the timetable of what we are trying to accomplish. And here's our fearless leader, Chris Getz, on the Crochet trade just a few days ago. It's never easy to have to make decisions like this. Garrett, what he did this past season was nothing short of excellent. But you look at the long-term health of the organization, and to inject the type of talent that we just did in this trade is really exciting for us. When you talk about accelerating a rebuild, this was a deal that we feel like had to be done. So there you go.
There you go. It's eerily similar.
Eerily, what goes around comes around. If you don't understand history, if you don't learn history, it'll sneak up on you. And it has snuck up on us in a way, but not you and I, Pat. We've been following this and so many others. We're on to you, Chicago White Sox. We know what's going on here, but we can't do anything about it except just hope. So I feel a little bit better, Pat. Not all the way, but a little bit. Yeah.
Well, what a way to end your birthday. Just how you wanted it, talking White Sox with me.
Yes. No, this is a great way to end the birthday and the wonderful weekend. So thank you so much, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Have a great one. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we look forward to talking again in a couple weeks.
Hey, for Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.